This is the third part of our mini-series on growing cacti in small containers. 1 month and 3 days have passed since the seeds were sown, and hopefully the cacti will have grown quite a bit. So here I am starting by removing the transparent film, which is not going to be needed anymore due to the warmer temperatures. And in today's video I will show you all the San Pedros, peyotes and other cacti in their current state. I've just taken a first look at the container so that I could count the plants. The results are interesting and I will share them with you in this video. Here's a full list of what I've sown a month ago. All are Trichocereus columnar cacti apart from the peyotes. First you can see a list of the seeds that have germinated, with varying degrees of success, and then those that failed to germinate. Among those that germinated, I had 5 containers of peyotes from 3 different sources. Then, 5 containers of Bridgesii, commonly known as Bolivian Torch, another container of much older Bridgesii seeds that I had to revive, one of Pachanoi seeds from 2017, and some less usual varieties of Trichocereus Atacamensis, Knuthianus, and Taquimbalensis. Those that, on the contrary, failed to germinate include Trichocereus Peruvianus, Terskiki, Peruvianus variety Tamaensis, and Germination, all of which were much older seeds. Before I show you the seeds that have germinated, let's talk briefly about the seeds that have failed to do so. I had sown quite a lot of Trichocereus peruvianus seeds, or Peruvian Torch, more precisely a sought-after strain called IcaroDNA. 5 small containers and a larger one. I managed to revive some of the same seeds with success last year, but this time for some reason it has failed. Probably the soil was not wet enough, or maybe the seeds are just now too old to even be revived, who knows. Out of the 5 small containers of Peruvianus, nothing came up. And out of the large container, only 3 plants came up. The Terskiki and Tamaensis seeds were collected in 2014, and I recently found them behind some books. They have not been stored properly, which means no airtight jar and no small bag of silica gel. And the air humidity where I live is quite high. I did not bother reviving them and none of them came up. As for the Germination, these were erroneously sold as cupulicola by the best-known cactus seed seller in Germany, around 2014. Well, as it so often happens, the plants that came up turned out to be a totally different species, Germination. Germination is a fat Trichocereus. You could not get further from the scopulicola, which looks more like a spineless Pachanoi. That means these seeds clearly were not harvested on the scopulicola plant. Around the same time, the best-known cactus seed seller in the Netherlands also started to sell scopulicola seeds. I bought some again, and once again they turned out to be the same exact Germination plants. These seeds were old, they have not been kept in an airtight jar, and I did not revive them. So not surprisingly enough, they have not germinated. Now let's take a look at the seeds that have germinated, starting with the only container of peyote that had shown signs of life in the previous video. These are the seeds from the German wholesaler I talked about earlier. We have a total of 47 plants out of 80 seeds. That's a 59% germination rate, which is way better than expected. These seeds were purchased by lots of 1,000, and I can tell you for a fact that I had some seeds from the same company that were recently purchased by lots of 10,000. And those only had a 40% germination rate. Well, from now on, I will only purchase them by lots of 1,000, even if that means I have to pay a higher price. I could be wrong, but I'm under the impression that the peyote seeds are a mix of fresh seeds and older seeds, which does not imply it was intentional on their part. There are some fresh ones in there because they germinated fast, and fresh seeds often germinate faster. And of course, older seeds don't germinate well, and I have the feeling there are more of these older seeds if you buy them by packs of 10,000. The problem is that most dealers buy them in packs of 10,000 so that they can resell it with good profit. So very often you will get a fairly low germination rate. Like I said, I could be wrong, and maybe it's something else I did that meant a lower germination rate in the past. This said, I repeatedly got about 40% germination rate out of those that came out of the 10,000 seed lot. Whereas this time, I get a nearly 60% rate out of 1,000 lot. Now these peyote seeds here were purchased from another cactus seed producer, a new one to me. None of them had come up last time we checked, which hinted to the fact they could be older seeds. Now there are some plants, but still not many. 11 of them out of 40. That's a 28% germination rate. Not very good. Unless I did not have the humidity right in the container, which is always a possibility. Still, I don't think I will buy seeds again from this gentleman. I grew 2 containers of these seeds. The other one has even less plants, and on top of it, it has some mold. That sucks, but I guess in a way it's good that this happened in this video so that you can see how I treat it. It's very simple. I just spray some 3% hydrogen peroxide on it. I spray it neat. It should not hurt the seedlings unless you really make them sit in it for too long. Hopefully, that will kill the mold. More peyotes here. These are from my dad. 12 plants out of 40. That's not great either. Then again, I don't know how long he's had these seeds for. He normally does not collect seeds, so it's possible they stayed on the plants for years. Another container from my dad. But here 2 interesting things. Number 1, the green algae you see here, which does not hurt the plants. And number 2, there is some mold on one peyote, just there. Very often, mold can originate from the seed shells, especially if they are older seeds and they have not been disinfected. A possibility is that some spores flying in the air could have made their way inside the container when I opened it for the last video. Unless it's just a sick plant that ended up molding, in which case it should not be a dangerous kind of mold. As for the green algae, it cannot come from the soil which is sterilized. Most likely it's something that flew in when I last opened the container. Like we did earlier, we're going to treat the mold with 3% hydrogen peroxide. Can this peyote survive? Maybe, we'll see. At the very least, it will be scarred. I don't know much about mold, but I've noticed there are different kinds. Different looking, but also there are some way more aggressive than others. I have the feeling that the mold you see here is not too vicious. We'll see if it can be contained with hydrogen peroxide, hopefully. Normally, I hardly ever encounter mold in my grows. It's because I grow the plants in trays covered in transparent film that I don't open for months. And also because I use my own seeds which are fresh and disinfected. Problems arise when you open the containers or when you use older seeds or seeds that have not been washed properly. Now let's move on to the Trichocereus plants. Here we start with one of the Bridgesii containers. Some plants are really tiny and some others are much bigger, which means they have not germinated at the same time. I had sown a total of 5 containers with these Bridgesii seeds, so let's compare them. Each container had exactly 40 seeds. This is how many seeds have germinated: 19, 25, 26, 30, 35. That's quite a disparity from 19 to 35 for exactly the same amount of seeds, which makes me think this disparity could be due to the uneven levels of humidity in each container. This is something I explained in the previous video. I do think the 2 containers with 30 and 35 plants represent the kind of germination rate these seeds should have. By the way, these are the Bridgesii seeds you can buy from the store I recommend in my video, Where to Buy San Pedro Seeds and Seedlings. Although these are not produced by me, I know they are properly identified as Bridgesii and that they should have a fairly good germination rate. In one of the Bridgesii containers, I found there is some mold on some of the seed shells. These are not seeds of mine, and it doesn't look like they've been disinfected. Very often, mold starts from older shells. I don't think that what we see here is going to do the plants harm, but I will definitely keep an eye on these. Next, we have some Bridgesii that come from an older batch of seeds, from the same supplier but many years old, and they were not viable anymore. So I revived them, and I'm quite happy I was able to get some to germinate. Next, I did a germination test on a bag I found of my own Pachanoi seeds that were 3 years old and had not been stored properly. Well, 42 plants came out of 60 seeds. That's a 70% germination rate. If they had been kept in an airtight container in the dark with a tiny bag of silica gel, the germination rate would have been higher. Here we have the hybrid of Trichocereus Atacamensis crossed with Pachanoi. If you remember well from the last video, they were very tiny seeds. We have 34 plants out of 40, that's an 85% germination rate. Well, at least 85% I should say, as it often happens that a plant or two die at an early stage, and I might have missed that. These are the Knuthianus seedlings. They've come a long way since the last time we saw them. Their 2 horns, the actual term is cotyledons, which were pointing at the sky, have now moved to the sides. And if you pay attention, one of the plants has 3 of them. Cacti are only supposed to have 2 cotyledons, But here we have an exception. It will be interesting to see if this genetic mutation affects that plant in any way. Probably not, but you never know. We have 34 plants out of 40, that's an 85% germination rate. And here's the Taquimbalensis. We have 34 plants out of 40, that's an 85% germination rate. It's already got quite a few spines. Remember, this is the cactus that had these absolutely wild, long and thick spines. Now let me explain what I'm going to do with the plants that did not germinate. I've just put the containers outside so the soil dries completely. Once it is fully dry, I will wet it again and expose the containers to a strong sun and keep it wet for a while. 1 or 2 dry wet cycles with some strong UVs from the sun can often bring back to life some non-viable seeds. We'll be following these just like the rest of the grow. After I placed these containers here on this shelf, I thought that the wind is likely to blow them away once the soil is dry, as they will not weigh much. So I put them in this large tray instead, which will also make it easier to bring back the whole lot inside my apartment if it looks like it's about to rain. If you remember well, there was also that large container of Peruvianus seeds. Since 3 plants in it have germinated, I'm not going to dry out the soil like for the others. That would kill them. So instead, I'm going to keep that container moist, leave it with the others inside the house, and see if more plants germinate. Now that some of the smaller containers are outside, I'm going to fill the missing space in my grow with a few more small containers. I will prepare them tomorrow and hopefully you'll see some seedlings thriving in them in my next update, in 4 weeks from now. Well, I say 4 weeks, but that's unless some emergency event happens in between that forces me to rush an update earlier on. For that reason, I'll be keeping an eye on that mold that's in some of the containers. And that should be easier now that the grow isn't wrapped in transparent film anymore. I hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly have fun making them. If you are growing cactus from seed and you would like to let us know how things are going for you, or if you have any question regarding the cultivation of these plants, please do so in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys again very soon.